Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's webinar on the strategies for maintaining a disease-free pig farm. My name is Victor Eyo, founder of Pig Farms Nigeria and author the Pig Disease Handbook. First off, let me wish you all a happy new year. We are just coming off a very turbulent year with the pandemic as well as other social crises. In the pig industry, 2020 hit many farmers really hard as the African swine fever ravaged across many farms in the country. We are happy to be alive, and we hope that through learning and hard work in 2021, we can go on to do great things. In tonight's webinar, I will be discussing some of the fundamentals to maintaining a farm where the incidence of diseases and infections are kept at the barest minimum. So let's quickly examine some of the key concepts that we will be using tonight. The first is biosecurity. Biosecurity is the implementation of measures that reduces the risk of disease agents being introduced and spread. With biosecurity, there is a conscious attempt to prevent the introduction of disease pathogens into the farm, and even when they occur, to quickly detect and isolate such cases. And then we also have farm feed quality and preservation. This refers to how well processed and preserved your animal feed is. Lastly, we will talk about farm maintenance. Now, farm maintenance refers to repair works that are conducted within and around the farm building, especially in the pen, to prevent cracks and blockages. Alright, let's quickly talk about what biosecurity means. Now, biosecurity are those measures that you undertake to reduce the risk of disease agents being introduced and spread in your farm. Biosecurity is a broad concept. However, there are two areas in which biosecurity measures are implemented in the farm. The very first is biocontainment, and the second is bioexclusion. So what biocontainment means is that these are the efforts you undertake to prevent the spread of diseases within the farm or to other farms. Now, what it means is that you might encounter a sick animal in your pen, and this animal, the disease affecting this animal can be transmitted to other animals. So when you effect or implement a biocontainment strategy, you quickly detect such a sick animal and you isolate that animal quickly from other pigs within the same farm. Okay, so that's what we call biocontainment. Now, bioexclusion is or refers to those efforts that you undertake to prevent the introduction of a disease into the farm. So in essence, you are ensuring that you don't bring in disease pathogens into the farm, either through infected shoes, infected stock, or restricting visitors who might have visited infected grounds from coming into your farm. So there are a broad number of ways that you can quickly implement biosecurity plans in your farm. Now, the very first one we're going to talk about is siting your farm, because that's the most important biosecurity strategy, where to site your farm. From experience, we find that farms that are isolated or that are situated away from other farms are less likely to be affected by diseases. So we say that we should avoid situating our farms close to other farms. It is even recommended that a distance of 1 kilometer should be kept between your farm and other farms. Now, this is important because if you are using a shared facility, it creates a lot of problems for you, because number one, the tenant, the occupant of the other pen, may not be alive to his responsibility of biosecurity measures or hygiene measures, and as such, whatever affects such whatever affects that particular person or the animals owned by that person will in turn affect you. So it is important that you try as much as possible to have private farms that are situated away from other farms. Okay, so in other words, you find that farm settlements are at risk, except that there is a collective decision, okay, of every farmer in such a settlement to implement biosecurity and hygiene strategies. Another way we look at location is you have to create a designated area for workers to change into their work clothing. So when workers come from their respective places of abode, they should not just go straight into the farm building. They need to have a different place where they can clean up, okay, remove their shoes, and then change into the work clothing. So you need to find a way and create such an area, okay. And then another thing when we talk about location is that you need to make sure that there is an area for feed and pig loading van that is outside the main perimeter of the pig building. Now this particular idea may seem to be stringent, but when you consider the fact that some of these vans are coming from slaughter grounds, you do not know where these vehicles are visited before. So it is important that you ensure that when someone is coming from a slaughter, for instance, to buy your pig, you tell the person, okay, park outside the building, or whatever area. If it's coming into the compound, you designate an area so that you can easily, after the person has left, you can easily disinfect that particular area. This is very important and very crucial. Okay, so when it comes to location now, what you need to do is to make sure that there are warning signs in front of your buildings, so that such as no entry or workers only, that will discourage unauthorized visitors from coming into your farm. Another biosecurity consideration is how do you interact with visitors. So the very first thing, I've always said it repeatedly on this platform, limit visitors to the farm. The farm is not a zoo, okay. The farm is vulnerable to disease pathogens. So as much as possible, only allow essential visitors and genuine buyers access into the farm building. Some people will just come, they say, okay, they have heard that this particular farm has this particular stock, they just want to go and see. Some people have not seen pigs before. Such careless access to farm buildings, okay, or farm premises is responsible for the spread of things like African swine fever, because mostly people move from farms to farm and it creates problem for you. And then also, when it comes to visitors, when you eventually allow visitors into your farm, make sure that they wash their hands thoroughly and they change into a designated farm clothes. If you go to certain farms, you see they have this overall. You give them overall, you can give them an overall and a bathroom slippers, and you allow them into the main building. This is so that wherever they have been, they cannot easily spread disease into your farm. And then this particular measure is very important. Don't allow visitors offer food to your pigs. I have seen in many occasions some visitors may come into your farm chewing gala. You don't even know what they are chewing. Some may even be eating pork, and then they now throw these things to the pigs. It is not advisable. In particular, let me talk about the issue of maybe giving pork meat to pigs. This pork may have come from an infected animal, yes, because we even know that African swine fever is not transmissible or cannot be transferred to human beings. So, but an infected meat, giving an infected meat to a pig, you stand the risk of infecting the pig with swine fever. Now let's talk about the biosecurity strategies you can implement at the level of your farm personnel. Now, you make sure that farm personnel don't rear pigs outside the farm. There are certain scenarios where farm workers have pigs, they have their own personal pig farm. This is not advisable, because the level of hygiene procedures, the level of animal handling procedures, the level of restraint that you exercise in your farm may not be adhered by these farm workers. So it is important that you do not allow them to raise pigs outside of the farm. Also, you also need to monitor them and caution them so that they do not start sharing your farm tools with other farms, because sometimes they might work in your farm in the morning and during their off hours they go to another farm to work, and most times they will take your tools and equipment with them. So there needs to be strict supervision of the farm personnel to ensure that firstly they do not raise pigs outside the farm, and they do not wear farm clothes outside the farm, and they do not use your own farm equipment in order or to work in other places. It might not necessarily be a farm, it might be even in or maybe a poultry farm nearby and the rest. You still stand a great risk when this is done. So let's also talk about biosecurity measures that you can implement when you are interacting with pig extension officers or agri extension officers. I have said it on our Facebook group that veterinary doctors are important, but they are also likely to spread certain diseases, because by the nature of their job, some of them go on farm visitations daily. So before coming to your farm, the veterinary doctor might have visited 2, 3, 4 other farms, and so the responsibility to check his activities will rest on you. So what you need to do is that the veterinary doctor should not be granted careless access to the farm. The biosecurity measures that you have already implemented on visitors should be fully implemented for the veterinary doctor. And if possible, make sure that you have a dialogue with your veterinary specialist to ensure that he visits one farm a day. Or if you are a veterinary doctor on this forum, please make sure that you restrict your farm visitations to at least 1 or 2 farms daily, and then you must make sure that you don't use the materials or the equipment you use in one farm on the other farm. Now let's talk about replacement stock. When you are sourcing stock, or you want to buy pigs, or maybe you want to replace your stock or things like that, make sure that you are buying pigs from farms where they follow strict biosecurity guidelines. For instance, if I go to a farm and there is no fruit dip at the entrance of the farm building, then I know that the farmer is careless, and this is one of the things that puts me off from patronizing such a particular farm. So you start your farm with pigs of high health status. You buy from a reliable farm. Okay, you inspect the farm and you make sure that even the minimum biosecurity guideline is implemented. Also, what are you supposed to do again? When you are transporting animals, you make sure that the vehicle you are using has been thoroughly cleaned and disinfected, because of course you don't know the manifest or the travel history of such a vehicle. There are other recommended biosecurity measures. Okay, we always say avoid overcrowding the pen. Okay, make sure you keep a spare pen for sick animals. Okay, so that when a sick animal is detected, they can quickly be moved to such a spare pen for disease mitigation process. Also, this is a point of conscience. Do not sell sick pigs. Maybe you have discovered that your pigs have African swine fever and you decide to cash out on such an animal. It is not good, because what goes around comes around. So please, if you have an animal that is mortally infected, do the right thing. Call or kill such an animal and bury it away from your farm. Another thing I want to point out before I go on to the next point is that as much as possible, maintain one entry and exit point into your farm. Don't have 2 exit or 2 entry, no, so that you can easily monitor who goes in and out of your farm. So I think that's the basic idea when it comes to biosecurity measures. Now let's quickly go to feed quality and preservation. balanced nutrition is key to swine health. Actually, when you feed your animals with the right nutrients, it ensures that they grow properly. But beyond that, it also improves the immunity or the ability of the animal to resist diseases. So as much as you can, you try to ensure that your feed contains contains sources of energy, sources of protein, sources of fiber, calcium, minerals, and vitamins. Now, there's the whole idea of swine nutrition can be broken down into three parts. Now, the first part is what I just said now, which it means you have to feed your animals balanced nutrition. But beyond that, you also have to ensure that what you are giving to them has been properly processed, because without processing the feed, you might be serving them harmful substances. So how do you process your feed? For most farmers who use, or depending on the kind of feed you are giving to them, you might want to make sure that you boil the feed properly. If you are serving them maybe leftovers from restaurants or bars, which I personally don't recommend, I would also suggest that you reboil the food after selecting any other particles from it. If you are serving them cassava peels, okay, it is also advisable that you boil it properly. You don't just give them raw meal like that. If you are not boiling your feed, make sure that you are grinding it so that the nutrients themselves are exposed. Personally, I always recommend grinding your feed and drying them and making sure that the feed has been properly processed. Now, those are the two areas now. The last area is how to store your feed. So let's talk about some key ideas when it comes to animal feed storage. The very first one is to make sure to keep the food storage areas clean, dry and cool. As much as you can, make sure that your store is not cold, or even if you have to put the feed on the bag of feed on the ground, use maybe a plank or something to place that on the ground before putting the feed or the bag of feed on the plank. Also, try to keep your food storage areas protected from mice and rats, as well as other rodents, because these rodents themselves are carriers of certain disease pathogens. So once they gain access to your feed, okay, they might pass on the disease pathogens that are present on their skin into your feed, and this might lead to other diseases affecting the animals. Now, when you are feeding your animals, always feed the oldest sources of food first. Okay, so the whole idea of feeding the new one and then leaving the old one, or leaving remnants of feed, try not to do that. Make sure that you open up the old bags, okay, exhaust it before opening the new bags. And then also you clean your storage bins, you clean the store as frequently as you can. Now, there's something else you have to understand when it comes to feed quality and preservation. The feeding trough of the pigs has to be cleaned daily, okay, because that place can be a fertile ground for fungal or algae or any other negative pathogens. So it is important that you clean it properly, so that when you put your feed, or you put feed in it in the morning or in the evening, you know that you are giving them a relatively clean feed. So that is just the whole idea behind feed quality and preservation. You give your animal balanced feed because this improves their immune system. For instance, deficiency in calcium can lead to lameness in pigs. So you know that you have to give your animals calcium. From personal experience, I know that when there is no calcium in the animal feed, or no source of calcium like limestone, for instance, you might encounter very difficult situation. The animal might grow lame, the animal might become susceptible to growth disorder, the animal will not even grow properly. So make sure that there is presence of those micronutrients outside sources of energy, sources of calcium or the rest. Make sure that those micronutrients are there. You need to include vitamins, and we know that you can get vitamins through fruit, or if possible, once in 2 months you administer vitamin injection on the animal. So it is always important that you give them those micronutrients, not just about the carbohydrate or the protein or the fiber. Make sure that you pay attention to those micronutrients that they need. All right, so we're going to move on to the last issue which we'll be talking about, which has to do with farm maintenance. So at this point, it is assumed that you understand the importance of biosecurity. You understand the importance of feeding your pigs balanced feed and processing it, as well as preserving it correctly. So now we now talk about the importance of routine farm building maintenance, because in most farms that we go to, they do not pay attention to routine maintenance. Pigs by their nature can be highly destructive, and so it is important that you routinely maintain the building, the pen, to prevent floor cracks that can cause illnesses or injuries to the animal. I'm going to refer to an incident that happened. Prior to farrowing, a farmer did not do the proper maintenance on the pen, and so the pen had cracks. The flooring of the pen had cracks, and water started collecting or gathering in some of these cracks. And then when the animal farrowed, the little piglets, started drinking from these little patches of water on the ground, and within a week time they had a scald or diarrhea, and in less than 3-4 days it became acute, and the whole litter died. So it is important that from time to time you repair the floor of your pen, and this is why we always insist, as per biosecurity, that you leave extra pens unoccupied, so that whenever you want to do routine maintenance, you can easily take some of these pigs there while the other one is under maintenance. And then we also look at another factor when it comes to farm pen space management. You need to avoid overcrowding when it comes to your pen. In the Pig Disease Handbook, in chapter 3 of the Pig Disease Handbook, section 1, I highlighted the specific pen space per winner, per grower, per finisher. I suggest that you get the Pig Disease Handbook and go through it. But the most important thing is, if you overcrowd a pen, you are not just punishing the animal or exposing the animal to disease, you are also creating a situation where your investment will take a longer time to mature. So I will advise you that as much as possible, if you have a growers, you restrict the number of animals in a pen to maybe 2, or in very extreme scenarios 3, because pigs need enough space to grow properly. Another thing you have to consider when it comes to your pen is to make sure that your pen is warm. Now, of course, we know that pigs do not have sweat pore and that they also need water. But when it comes to piglets, okay, you need to have a warm pen for them. So what do? You try to keep a straw or grass or straw or grass or wood shavings in the pen to enable the piglets warm themselves up when early in the morning, okay, when the weather is extremely cold. Another thing you have to understand with pen management is the need for your concrete pen to be dry. Yes, we are looking at the Clean Pen campaign, and how we can ensure that farmers wash their pen at least once a day. But part of the process is to ensure that water flows freely out of the pen. So if you, after washing your pen, after maybe 30 minutes, 1 hour, there is still water on the concrete floor, then that means the design of your pen is wrong, because your pen is supposed to take a slope. Okay, it's supposed to take a slope towards the drainage, and once that happens, it is easier for you to flush water out from the pen, and it is easier for the pen to get dry easily. So you must make sure that your pen is dry. Your pen is constantly wet. Of course, there will be disease pathogens there, and this will create a lot of problems for you. And then another question I'd like to answer under this platform is, how can we keep pigs cool? Now, conventionally, we find that a pen is usually segmented into feeding trough and a bathing area, where the animals go there, lie, and then cool off. Okay, like a cooling spot. And then recently we have seen farmers put like a shower in the pen. Whichever strategy you want to apply, you must make sure that you apply this strategy in such a way that your pen can quickly return to can quickly be dried off, okay, while giving the animals access to water to cool off during the dry season. Okay, and then also under pen space management, we also look at the issue of ventilation. Okay, pigs require enough air. Now, the implication of an overcrowded farm building is the presence of high ammonia, okay, carbon dioxide, and these things lead to diseases because some of these bacteria are airborne, and then when there is no ventilation, it quickly affects the health of the animal. So as much as possible, try to make sure that your windows are large enough, and then the pens are not overcrowded. And then we also look at hygiene. It is important for you to maintain 100% hygiene in your pen. Now, we are saying that pigs need clean pen. Okay, so as much as possible, make sure you wash the pen in the morning, take away their feces and their effluent, and give them a clean and dry condition to stay. Okay, so that's the most important thing you have to consider. You might not be the one doing the chore once you have a pen attendant, but your philosophy still stands. So the moment you lay down a marker and say that you want your pen to be clean, you want the concrete floor to be dry always, then these things will be implemented. So these are some of the preemptive measures you can take to reduce the incidence of diseases. Okay, if you implement these preemptive measures 100%, then you have already successfully eliminated disease in your livestock to at least 60 to 70%. Okay, cases of diseases are mostly products of careless farm management. All right, so that's all about farm maintenance. All right, so you have been seeing the advert about the pig disease handbook. This webinar, the pig disease handbook, is going for the 25% discount, which means you can quickly make payment for it for 2,250 naira. The pig disease handbook is a product of extensive research, and it is worth it because there are so many things that you see there that would help you understand what we have been talking about in the past hour, and then also help you detect diseases and gives you an idea of what you can do. The pig disease handbook does not replace a veterinary specialist, okay, but I've been in the business for some time now, and I cannot remember when I really consulted a veterinary specialist. All I know is that we are able to detect diseases, and we know the right kind of antibiotic that will be sensitive to these diseases, and once we inject or vaccinate the animal, then these things will not happen. Alright, so on a final note, I want to appreciate all of you for taking our time to listen to us this evening. Pig Farms Nigeria will continue to unroll webinars like this, and I always advise you try to at least 2, 3, 4 times a week, visit our website. The pigfarms.ng website is your gateway to Pig Farm Knowledge, subscribe to our newsletter, follow our page, follow our group. The conversation still continues. So for all of us who pre-ordered the handbook, we are grateful for the support you have given to us, and we will continue to provide knowledge and support to you. So this webinar, if you have any questions, you can ask the questions in the tab. I've seen so many questions and we are responding to them on the fly. Alright, so thank you very much. Have a lovely evening.